Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Lisa Tartaglia, and I'm coming to you from You Only Die Once. And I'm here with my dearest friend from medical school, Dr. Corinna Muller. She and I met in 1999. It seems like just yesterday, and it's so hard to believe that it's going to be 24 years since I met her. And I'm bringing her to us today because she has some awesome news to share with us. But before we get started, I would like Dr. Muller to introduce herself to you. And Karina, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Awesome. Thank you so much for letting me be a guest today. It is so wonderful to see you and hear your voice and to know that I get to see you in person here coming up soon. And my name is Corinna Muller, and I went to medical school with Dr. Tartaglia. And I am a perinatologist, which is a high risk OBGYN specialist and OBGYN. So I'm board certified in both of those fields. And a lot of my days are spent diagnosing and talking with patients about either really serious maternal problems that arise in pregnancy or are there prior to pregnancy, and then also looking at each pregnant patient's baby on ultrasound and maybe finding a heart defect or major problem that might have to be sent out of state. I live in Alaska, for different care after the baby's born or even prior to the delivery. So it's kind of a stressful field, and I found that through coaching, that I could, and also through music, that I could kind of escape from the reality of a very stressful career in medicine. And it's my way of, meditation. So that's what I do now. I have my own practice in Anchorage, Alaska called Aurora Maternal Fetal Medicine. And yeah, it's great. It's fun. I love what I do, and yeah, that's what I've been doing for the last 24 years.
Awesome, great. I have to share with the audience, for those of you that are watching this video today, of how we met, because I share this with everyone. Dr. Muller got to not only know me, but also my entire family while she was doing her medical training because she was so far away from home. And I will never forget the day Karina, Dr. Muller, rolled into medical school because she didn't come in on the first day of school, but she came in with like huge, duffel backpack, and she had a wad of cash because she had to go buy a car, find an apartment. I mean, these are all things that most people had all set up months in advance of starting medical school. But Dr. Muller, she just rolled right in, and I was like, wow. Now, back then, her name ended with H, and my name is T. So we were separated by alphabet. So I was like, this H lady, I'm going to get to know her. And we were study partners. We studied osteopathic manipulation. We had to do anatomy together. But I'm not surprised that you're back in Alaska, back in your home state. I'm also not surprised of all that you've been doing, because what you didn't share with the audience is how you also not only have a dual board certification for medical school, but she also has an MBA. So I think that she is such a badass physician and friend, and I'm just enamored by her. So, Dr. Muller, do you remember coming upon Erie, Pennsylvania, and what that was like for you to leave everything back home and come over to med school in the lower 48?
Yes. So I remember that I went and interviewed at the Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine for medical school, and there was a lot of snow there. It was very surprising for the Alaskan to go there and experience all of the snow. And um, I had heard back from LECOM that I was an alternate for the medical school class. And so one day I was sitting, well, I guess I was sleeping. I was sleeping because I was working nights in tourism in Alaska in the summer. And I had planned to go to Oregon State University for a master's in public health if I
Hmm.
didn't get into medical school. So I was like waiting to hear if I was going to be accepted as an alternate. And it was like 6 a.m. Alaska time because we're 4 hours behind East Coast time. And the phone rang, and my parents had already gone to work. I was living at home for the summer. And I was like, oh, this has to be my phone call about getting into medical school. I just knew it. It was in me. It was like, this is what it is. I bolted out of bed, and like when you're answering the phone and you're like, no, 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 I'm good. I'm good. I wasn't sleeping. I'm awake. I'm awake. And so then I answered the phone, and they're like, this is Lecom. We want to know if you would be willing or if you can come down and be here in 3 days for orientation. Medical school. I was like, I'm in. I'm coming. You're going to see the Alaskan. And so I packed up, I always say this, it was like 3 bags. I packed up 3 bags. I got a hotel room for a week in anticipation of knowing that I was going to eventually find like an apartment or a place to live there. And I didn't have a car. I didn't really have anything, but I brought 3 bags with me and started medical school. And I drove up in a cab. And that's when the dean of our medical school is like, you came here in a cab? Why? She was like, I will drive you to school, Dr. Sylvia Ferretti. And I
Oh, I
was
didn't
like,
know
oh.
that part.
she was she was like looking at me like, why did you come to school in a cab when I could have driven you to school, the Alaskan?
Wow.
So that was really neat. And that day I was so I was just I felt so welcomed because I said, listen, Dr. Freddie, I'm going to buy a car later today. And that's why I had like this big old wad of cash. It was so funny because my parents, my wonderful parents, they had taken out a loan for me to get a car. And
Oh,
yeah, so I went and got this little Toyota, it was like a Toyota Corolla or something like that. And Diane, one of our friends from medical school, helped me do the test drive. And so that was great.
yeah. And I met you through our lovely friend Diane. It's just been
Yeah.
great. You know, for those of you who have not attended medical school is very hard. It's a very difficult time in our lives, and it's similar to childbirth in the sense of people tell you what the birth of your child's going to be like and all the anticipation. But unless you've gone through it, nobody really can understand what it's like. So I feel like with you, Dr. Muller, and same with Dr. Simpson, we have such an incredible bond because we wiped each other's tears and built each other up when we were getting knocked down, because that's what medical school is about. They constantly are knocking you down just to make sure that you're good enough to stay. And we made it, my friend. We made it.
Yes, failing forward. That's definitely my story.
Yeah.
I think if you can't learn from, the mistakes or the ways that you could, eventually um, improve your processes in medical school, then sometimes it just doesn't work out. So yeah, we made it. It was not easy, but we did. Yeah,
Yeah.
we thrived.
Yes, we sure did. So that being said, I'd like you to share with the audience what's new, like what's happening in the next week. I'm going to be seeing you. You just told the audience that I'm going to be coming out to San Diego, but I want to hear about your book. Tell us.
Yes, so the whole idea of the book kind of started um, in a different realm of my life. So I am also a professionally trained musician. I'm a flutist. And in my undergrad studies, I have a bachelor in biology and in music. And so I
Mhm.
played like 6 hours a day in college to prepare for weekly recitals, playing the flute, and it kind of took a back seat in those medical school years and during my residency and fellowship training. And once I passed my maternal fetal medicine boards, I was like, listen, I'm going to get back into music. My reward to myself is going to be a new flute. And I just started playing again. And it was really kind of like getting on a bike and riding again, after not riding for quite a long time. I mean, it just kind of comes back to you, the music. And it really played a part in my life when I was getting burned out with medicine,
Mhm.
and being able to say, all right, I'm going to play my flute now. It's my form of meditation, it's my creative outlet, and it's a way for me to kind of forget about some of the other more intense things that happen that are pretty emotional in my field,
Mhm.
um, and a way to kind of like put a pause on thinking about those things and not bringing them home. And, you know, I went to a music program when I was an attending at my last position, called Summer Music in Tuscany. And it
Mhm.
was in Sartiano, Italy. And I had this opportunity to make my Italian debut in music on a 16th century stage. It was like one of those top tier experiences, just playing my flute. Everyone is out on the street. They're in this little village doing all their things. And I was playing my flute, and the windows were open and the breeze was coming in. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm playing the soundtrack of these people's lives, and they're just going on with their life and nothing. I mean, who knows if they could hear me? I don't know. And it was a pinnacle moment. And so I wrote about it. And that's what the Ottava method, that's how all of those ideas came together to say music really shaped my life and the processes of achieving goals. And, that's what I'm trying to promote.
That whole experience just sounds so magical and so surreal. I remember when you were in Italy doing that, but I can't even imagine having your skill at playing the flute and being able to do that in a small town, in Italy, and
Mhm.
having that time to reconnect with yourself. So I'm just curious, once you had that moment, did you know at that time, like, I'm writing a book? Or did it come more when you were doing your MBA program? Like, tell me how it
So
all
I
came.
I think it was it was more after I had really had a challenge with burnout in medicine,
Mhm.
um, in my last position working for a hospital, and I had to take a literal break because I broke. I was going down to my basement one day and I missed a stair. I was going down to my basement to work out on my treadmill and I broke my leg bad, in 3 places. It's called a trimalleolar fracture. And that day, I knew I had so many patients to see. I had a whole bunch of inpatients, I had a whole bunch of outpatients, and I was just already stressed to begin with. And the first thing I did when I fell to the bottom of the stairs, um, I was lucky because my husband was down there. We had just finished our basement, and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and he was watching TV like he has insomnia. And so he happened to be down there. Like, if he would have been upstairs, nobody would have heard me. And so I broke my leg. And the first thing I said to him, which is like, come on, like, this shouldn't be the first thing that comes out of someone's mouth when they're like, literally so broken and hurt and need surgery to fix their broken
Mhm.
leg, was call my boss because I need him to know that somebody needs to cover for me today. Like, I just felt like this undying, like, commitment
Mhm.
to work and see those patients and thought that no one else could do it and I needed to. And I mean, it was definitely just like an eye-opening moment. And the recovery, the surgery, all the things that happened, having to learn how to walk again, being non-weight bearing for 9 weeks,
Mhm.
that all put me into a state of thought about what am I going to do in my future in this field of medicine. Like, I had the literal pause. I didn't
Mhm.
have to think about patient care. I didn't have to think about writing notes. I was working on myself, my recovery, my digging out of that burnout, digging out of that, literal pain and brokenness, that was physical as well after that fracture. Um, and so at that time, I was like, talking to my husband, we're like, we need to go back to Alaska. We need to go where we have family. And I was like, I'm just going to start a practice.
Wow.
So that's how we got there. And then throughout the pandemic and even prior to that, I really enjoyed being coached by a physician coach, and
Mhm.
then pursued that myself in training at the Physician Coaching Institute in Seattle. I got the MBA because I thought, that would help me with my business, my practice, and with the coaching business that I eventually started called Lady Docs. And now it's also known as the Ottava Creative. And then in looking at coaching philosophies, and how I could portray that or like give that to my intended target audience of physician women, I decided to create the Ottava Method, where it mixes business, musical, and coaching principles, to tell people or to lead people in a way to achieve their goals in an 8-step method based on the 8 steps of a scale, called the Ottava Method. And ottava is an Italian term for octave, and to 8VA in the little musical literature, is to take your notes that are written up an octave, and we do that pretty often in the flute literature. And so it's a way for people to 8VA their lives in a stepwise fashion.
I tell you, I just love it. You know how much I love you, but I just love it, and I just think it's so interesting how we all, as female physicians, we all can go back to one moment in our career that was pivotal to make changes, and a lot of aha moments. But it is so it was so unfathomable to me when you reached out and said, I broke my my leg. I'm like, wow, that's what it took to slow Dr. Muller down to really get back in tune with herself, and to see how far you've come from that fracture is just incredible. Um,
Yeah.
I just think it's amazing, and I just feel like you will constantly be taking your life to the next notch, because that's how you've always been to me.
Well, thank you. I mean, I, I think back to that moment when I broke my leg and how I sat there wondering, in the next days to come, like, would I ever be the same? Would I ever be able to walk again? And just like all that pain. And I would do it 10 times over again just to be able to have the experience and the autonomy that I have now in medicine. Because I mean, I don't know why it took that to wake me up, to like make me say, YODO, you only die once, you only live once.
Mhm.
So you might as well do what you want to do, especially in the field of medicine. I mean, we train so hard, we
Mhm.
sacrifice so much, and then to be, and this is not, to offend people that are employed by hospital systems or big corporations, but like to do all of that work and then not have a say in your destiny and work for someone, a big hospital system or a corporation. um, I mean, that's something that I feel like I could help people with. I could teach them. I could say, yes, you can do it. Here's how you can do it, because there's a lot of things that hold people back. And, one is fear. And another big one is finances in, the medical realm. Like, people don't think that they can do it. They don't think that they could make the money, or they don't think that they have the business acumen to have their own practice. But like, that autonomy is just
Mhm.
amazing. So I'm here to like shout it from the rooftops
Yeah.
down to the piazza in Sartiano in Italy.
Yes. Let's go back to Tuscany. All I can say to you is you hit the nail on the head. There are two things that always affect physicians, and I feel that,
Mhm.
not to go down the rabbit hole of corporate medicine, but corporate medicine plays on that, the finance and the fear of us,
Mhm.
because we went through a lot and we have a lot of debt, most of us, to become physicians,
Yeah.
and then we're empaths at heart, so we want to do the right thing. So they really play on that fear component. For me in my career has always been, how do we, stick it to her. I always felt like it was a stick it to me kind of thing, because they'd say, well, you don't want to help the patient. No, it's not that we don't want to help patients, but there has to be good boundaries. Um, before we go any further, I'd love to ask you, like, what was it all like to close everything up in Pennsylvania and to go back to Anchorage? I would love to know the process of getting out of your prior practice commitment, and then how you got back up to Anchorage.
It was really emotional. I mean, everything that happened kind of surrounding my awakening, I should say, um, was very, very emotional. And I had trained at my previous institution in my fellowship, and they asked me to come back to teach in that fellowship. So I had gone back there, um, and I'd worked there for 5 years. And so a lot of the people that I worked with there, I had known since I started my fellowship, back in 2008. And so, it was like I felt like I was betraying them.
Mm,
I felt like I was giving up, or that I was, moving away, and that I was letting them down. And, I gave my notice, and it was really hard. I thought about it for a long time, and then I did have a lot of fearful moments that I was not making the right decision. And I think medicine in Alaska is a lot different than in the lower 48, as we call it, and that there are so many private practices here. And a lot of physicians are they're just not owned. They are private, and it's kind of the norm here. And
mhm.
so when I would tell people that I was starting my own practice, they were like, "What are you doing, crazy lady? Why are you doing that?" They were very doubtful of my, success in that endeavor. And so that was scary too. But luckily, I did have a lot of people in Alaska that I had worked with before, who knew that my subspecialty was needed. They welcomed me back into the community, because I had worked up here in Alaska as a maternal fetal medicine specialist for a few years before I went back to Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
And so, I had great support up here. And um, it takes a while to establish a successful practice, but now it's booming, it's great, it's busy all the time. But I have control over that, which
Mhm.
is great. So the whole process was scary, emotional. Had a lot of imposter thoughts
Mhm.
surrounding that. And then, once I got here, I knew it was the right place for me. And yeah, it's just really exciting to kind of tell people about this story because I want them to know they can do it too. They can. You can do it.
And you don't even have to do it in Alaska, right? You could do it in the lower 48.
Yeah, you really could. And, I don't mean to say that Alaska is the only place left, the last frontier where you can do medicine in a private, setting. But yeah, it can be done anywhere. Really, it can. You just have to have the right people supporting you
Mhm.
and, be willing to surround yourself with those who have been successful in doing it so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You follow their lead. And that's what I'm hoping to be, is a consultant to people on starting practices and using my MBA, my coaching experience, and my experience as being a private practice owner. And you can be successful. You just need to surround yourself with those people who can show you how.
That's wonderful. I think you are so right. In medicine, there is so much fear-based and feeling of not good enough and quitting. And I like to say I never in palliative medicine we try not to use the word quit. We try to use the word choices because for
Mhm.
palliative medicine we are the final the final physician that will touch patients most frequently,
Yeah.
and we have a hard time having patients and families come to acceptance. So I feel like with what you did by moving back up closer to home where you have support was smart, and it was a fresh new start for your family and also for you to reinvent yourself because you'd already been there before. So I think it's just incredible. Now, can you tell us where we can buy your book?
Yes. So it's on Amazon on Kindle.
Hmm.
It's also at Barnes and Noble, Apple Books. I mean, anywhere books are sold, you can look it up. The Ottava Method by Corinna Muller. And I also will have um, some books available at this upcoming conference that I'm going to be speaking at. It's the American College of Osteopathic Obstetricians and Gynecologists. It's called ACOOG. And we're doing our national meeting in San Diego in a week. So it starts on the 26th of March, 2023. And I'm also having a book release party there. And that's where I'm going to meet up with Lisa and Diane, my awesome BFFs from medical school. And that's going to be on the 27th of March at the San Pascal Winery. We'll have a nice book launch party there. So yeah, I'm having a few other little gatherings, one local here in Alaska and another one, that one in San Diego. So that's where you can get the book.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I would like an autographed copy of my book, please.
Oh yes, yes, definitely.
I tell you, Dr. Muller, you are amazing. I knew it the first day I saw you with your 3 bags coming into the lecture hall, like, and I knew it as our career evolved. Here I am, way back when we didn't have internet like we have today. My family would send pictures of my little baby niece, and you would show us pictures of moose and elk from your father and mother's house. Um, so I've yet to get up to Alaska. I can't wait to get up there one day very, very soon.
I
Um,
know. And you just have always been the most amazing friend and colleague and just so supportive. And I mean, I just love what you're doing now, taking charge of your career,
Thank
having
you.
your own, private practice and, helping all of those people who need to be educated about what it means to die. You only die once, right? And that's what this whole YouTube channel is. And, your business and your practice, and you're just such an amazing and humble person and also just so compassionate. Like it just comes out of your pores.
It's gotta be
And
that Italian,
yeah.
100% Italian. Well, I thank you so much for joining us today, and we are going to add to our channel where to find your book, and where to come find your practice if you're in. If you have
Mhm.
anybody in Alaska that needs perinatal help, please reach out to Dr. Muller. She is compassionate, kind, competent, loving, and will help you every step of the way with your complex pregnancy. Again, Dr. Muller, thank you so much for joining us. And I really enjoyed getting to interview you. And I will see you soon, very soon next week. I can't wait. Thank you.
Ditto.